So, okay, let me check the time. It's 4:05. We've got 27 people registered. Let me just give it another minute because people are pouring in right now. So I don't want to get started on this topic without everybody. Let's see. I'd like to see an example of the regression analysis, perhaps a story where this got a favorable appraisal. Okay, so that was from Josh Steiner. Okay, so Josh, I'll answer that question in a minute here. I don't have a copy of a regression analysis that I'm going to throw up on the screen, but I'll explain what it is. The reason I don't is because it's kind of a complicated statistical mathematical equation. We'll go over what that looks like in a second. But looking at it for most people wouldn't make a lot of sense. But I'll explain the meat of it so people can understand what it is and how to get one, because that's really what you need. Okay, so let me just give it one more minute here. Just let some more people come through. And if anybody has any other topics they want me to cover, go ahead and put it in the chat. Oh, there's a chat going on here. I'm sorry, I've not done a webinar before, so I'm just pulling this together. Yes, so somebody asked, so David asked, are we going to go over appraisals on a property with an ADU and a JDU? Yeah, I will. Travel nurses make money. Yes, they do. I've got a travel nurse coming for like a month and a half in February through the beginning of April. I have a 400,000-ish loan budget cash. Should I build ADU in East Bay for my rental, or should I buy a house in Arizona? Well, that's a great question. So BB Tiana asked, what should they do with their money? Should they build an ADU or buy a house in Arizona? If it were me, I would look at it from this way. I would go on airdna.co and I would pay for the report for the address or area you're looking in Arizona and find out how much money can you make on a house in Arizona if you spend your 400,000 down there, whether you get a loan or not, look at those houses, what performs well down there, how much money can you make? And then I would look at your house in the East Bay and see if you have a 1 or 2 bedroom ADU, how much money will you make? Rental is $2,500, not long-term rent. I mean, Airbnb short-term rent. I like Airbnb short-term rents for all this stuff. They make a ton of money. I don't know about where you're looking in Arizona. Some places in Arizona I know is really hot. How much increase in property taxes? Well, that's a great question. So like for this property that I'm doing in Concord with the basement JADU, I know the county assessor and he's pretty fiscally conservative. So he doesn't like to jack your taxes up a lot. And if you think that they've gone up too much, you can contest that. You can say, hey, I think you're wrong on this. So you fill out a form. I try and fill out that form in such a way that tells them, hey, I've not added a ton of value on this. That's for tax purposes, right? I mean, obviously for appraisals, we want something different. So you're in LA County. Increase in property taxes. Well, all throughout California, property taxes are about 1.25% of the assessed value. So if you add value to your property, they're gonna look at that and increase your assessed value that you're taxed on, and that goes up a little bit every year. But yeah, so if you add an ADU, and let's say they take the square footage of it and they assign $250 a square foot, that might be too much. So I would say, hey, this is not what it adds in real world value, and here's why. Maybe here's my appraisal, whatever it is. You use your rentals or ADU for Airbnb? I do. Airbnb all day long. It makes so much money on Airbnb. I was shocked. It's incredible. Thanks for listening. Dialing in from LA County. We're planning stages for detached ADU. What loan types do you handle? Okay, so this is not a self-promo thing, but I will answer a couple of questions on loans, and we'll talk more about this towards the end. But I'm going to go over some loan things for ADUs so that you guys don't end up in a position where you're getting screwed trying to finance your ADU, because there's some really specific guidelines for most loan programs around ADUs. And if you set it up wrong, you can get yourself in a position where you can't get good financing on it. Most communities prohibit short-term rentals under 30 days. You've got to look up your short-term rental restrictions. And if it's too difficult or it's not allowed, like some areas in Sonoma, like the city of Sonoma, it's not allowed at all. Sonoma County has some areas where you've got to get a permit. Permit can be pretty difficult. They want you to bring, like if you've got a septic tank, they usually want you to put in a new one because a lot of old redwood septic tanks. So anyways, hey, we're running over here. We got 31 participants, which is great. It's 4:09. Let's get started. Okay, so thanks for chiming in, everybody. I appreciate all the comments in the chat. If you have questions, click on the Q&A and type them up there. It's just easier for me to pull it up on my iPad here and go over that. So we're going to start with, we're going to discuss how do you get your property with an ADU valued correctly by an appraiser. And this is a problem a lot of people have, and it's not unique to you. If you got an appraisal recently and you go, hey, I spent $250,000 on this ADU, and some jackwagon appraiser gave me a $30,000 valuation increase on it, like what the heck? obviously it's worth more than $30,000, or you wouldn't have spent $250,000 putting into it, right? I mean, especially when you look at the income potential, wiping out your mortgage payment, making properties cash flow like crazy, way beyond what they would normally. There's so many incredible opportunities and uses and reasons for why people want accessory dwelling units. But the data is hard to accumulate because the density in most areas is super low. We're talking like 0.1, 0.3, 0.5% of all the homes. You look at 150,000 homes, and 100 of them will have like an ADU, right? And so an appraiser go, well, there's just no comps, So, I went back a year and a half, I found one comp, this type of thing, or I couldn't find any comps, and the lender's going to want comps. And so appraisers have a lot of tools at their fingertips to value something. So if you look at an appraisal and you look at the value grid page is what it's called. The value grid page will show a number of things, but it's going to show your subject property, the property you're getting appraised, and then it's going to have vertical columns with other properties that are comparable sales. And they're going to try and look for comparable sales in the last 6 months. If they can't find any, they'll go back 12 months. If they really can't find any, they'll go back farther, but they have to time index them forward, if that makes sense. So I'll talk about what that means in a minute. So in that value grid, you're going to have all these things, and you've probably seen it. It says, do you have a pool? Yes, maybe the comp one doesn't, or it does. How many bedrooms, how many baths, how many total rooms? Excuse me, what is the square footage? What is the condition of the property? They have condition ratings, C for condition, C1 through 5, right? I think lower is better, 5 being the worst, right? A lot of them are C3, C4. Does it have HVAC? Does it have solar panels? Is there a deck? Is there covered parking? Is there a garage? These sort of things. So when you look on there and you have a house with an ADU, in the value grid, they'll line up the comps and they'll go, okay, subject property has an ADU, comps 1, 2, and 3 don't. So across the value grid, they're going to give a positive adjustment because in comparison to these properties, yours is worth more, and they'll go 30,000, and you'll go, what kind of drug are you smoking? It's worth more than 30,000, right? And you just get so mad. And I've seen this; it's terrible. And so the question really is, where do they get the data to write on that little value grid? It's worth 30,000 more or 50,000 more. And if you go to them, you say, hey, I want you to back up your data. Tell me where you got this. They'll kind of, and they won't give it to you, right? A lot of appraisers, I hate to say this, are a little bit lazy. And, it's not that they're bad, but for an appraiser to back up the data on that could take a lot of work. They've got to go find homes that sold with ADUs and show you the data on it. If there's no comps in the comp set that show that, that's something they have to look at. So, what they can do, and not all appraisers know how to do this, is put together what's called a multiple point regression analysis. Okay, so this is a statistical mathematical equation, and it's really complicated. And I'm not a math major, so I don't know how to do a regression analysis, but I know enough about them to be dangerous, and I know where to go to get them. And that's what's important. So when I had my house appraised for my refinance after I bought it and after I remodeled it, I was concerned that the appraiser was going to come in and wasn't going to give me enough value for the ADU. I knew my home was worth about $680 roughly, right? At the time. And this was in 2018 or 19, right? When I was going to get refinanced. And so I reached out to a guy that I worked with. And during the crash, he went all over the country teaching appraisers how to do different valuation models, but specifically he taught them about regression analysis, multiple point regression analysis. And I had a conversation with him this morning just to kind of go over the finer points of what I was going to discuss today. So what that'll do, and what he did for mine, is he went 8 years back in the city of Concord, and he looked at homes that were similar to mine. And he compiled a list of hundreds of homes that had sold that were similar to mine. And then he put together as many as he could over that 8-year period that sold that had an ADU on them. And then he had to do another step. He had to time index all of them forward, which means, okay, if he took a comp that sold back in 2012, he had to look at really specific numbers. And it's not just one thing, but basically he can get numbers to go, okay, this home has gone up, 25% in value since 2012. And so he time indexes all of them forward to go, okay, if this sold today based on when it sold and the time valuation changes and, like how much more homes are selling per square foot, that's one thing. That's not a scalable model, though. Be careful with that. What is it worth today? Time index all those comps forward, and then he puts them on an XY graph, right? And then you have all these little data points. And so you can see, homes with ADUs and then versus homes without ADUs, right? And square footage versus sales price. So you can look at, and bed bath counts and all these things. So basically what it goes, the 3-2, I've got 53 twos that sold, without an ADU. And I've got 53 twos that sold with an ADU. And over time, people are paying more for an ADU now, house with an ADU. The demand is higher, it's increasing. So he takes that into consideration also. It's part of the time index. And he puts together this really complex data set called a multiple point regression analysis. And he comes up with a figure, percentage figure, and a number to assign to a value, a home with an ADU that's similar to yours. And then I give this data to the appraiser who actually appraised my home. So this guy comes in and I grilled him, man. Before he came out, I said, I don't want you coming out if you're not going to do a good job on this. I don't want you to come out if you're not going to consider my regression report. I've done hours of research. I've got an expert on this. I've got all the data you need. Well, he was thrilled. He was really nice. He was over the moon. He goes, you got a regression report on this? I said, yes. He goes, that's fantastic. That saves me a ton of time. He wasn't going to do a regression report. Well, the regression report basically said, no, he wasn't from Martinez. Somebody asked me, was the guy from Martinez? No. The regression report basically said, your house is worth about $90,000 more because it has an ADU, which I was thrilled about. If you compared my home to another home that, people always want to count the square footage or the extra bedroom and bathroom, it was about that amount. I got a really good valuation on my home. I was able to drop PMI, lower my payment by like $900, pull out a home equity line of credit for 110 grand. I mean, it was incredible. And that's how I bought another home with an ADU. So anyways, that's a multiple point regression analysis. Now, if you go to a lender and you do a refi, I got the regression analysis, before I had the appraisal done. Very important. And you say, hey, I want you to get a regression report put together and give it to the appraiser. Most lenders don't know what that is. I certainly didn't. I've been doing this almost 10 years. And most appraisers won't want to consider that. So what I do for my clients, and look, this is not a self-promo thing, but I'm happy to help if people are having a hard time getting this done, because this is a little bit complex. So I work with an appraisal management company. Within the appraisal management company, I have panel appraisers, meaning we've vetted out like a dozen appraisers or so, and the jobs always land within these certain appraisers. Obviously, it depends on the area. So when I'm in a different area, I call and I go, who do you have in this area that you know is really good and is especially good at valuing homes with ADUs? You don't always need a regression report. But in the case where there's a lack of data, where you can't go back and go, I can't find more than one comp in the last 6 months or 12 months that's sold with an ADU, then you probably do need a regression report. And so I'll say, okay, this guy's really good. Okay, if I get a regression report put together by an independent appraiser who's going to do market research in this area for me, a regression report should cost anywhere from $400 to $900, depending on the complexity. And somebody asked that question. So will this appraiser accept it? Because I've had appraisers go, I won't accept anything from you. I don't want anything to influence the value, even data, right? Crazy. They're really scared of getting burned. They don't want their license revoked. So what I would do is I would ask my appraisal management company, make sure that this guy is open to receiving a regression report or data about ADU valuation ahead of time, because I don't want to get some stick in the mud who goes, no, I won't look at anything, right? So anyways, that's what I would do. And I would just make sure we've got an appraiser who's willing to work with us, who has good experience with this, and who's willing to consider the data, or is able to put together the regression report. And what I might do is I might say, offer the appraiser some ridiculous number like $1,500 or $1,800 for the appraisal report, if he knows how to and agrees to putting together a detailed regression report going over the last 5 or 8 years, compiling necessary data to figure out how to accurately value my ADU on this property. Ask him. And if he says yes, sure, because appraisers don't like to do this. It takes a lot of time and it's complicated, and it's complicated math, honestly. And there's a lot of appraisals being ordered right now. So they can just say, no, I'm going to go find another one. But if you offer them enough money, they might say, yeah, sure. Otherwise, what I would do is I would just order the appraisal and make sure it goes with somebody good. And I would reach out to one of the appraisers I know and work with that I know would do a regression analysis well, like the appraiser I use up here. I know of one up in Oregon too, but I can find these guys. And I would have them do it. And then I would just have, my client pay them directly, $400, $500, $600, whatever it is, it's worth it, right? And that's what I would do. And so there's really probably 2 reasons why you'd want a regression report. One, if you're going to sell a house with an ADU, you'd probably want to put that in the MLS docs just so people could see how it could be supported from an appraisal standpoint. Because when buyers go to make offers on homes, they want to know that it's going to appraise and get a loan on it. And so that's a really good guide, and they can give that to the appraiser. You can give that to the appraiser. Your agent can give it to the appraiser when the appraiser comes out, along with other comps you think are worth looking at. The other times, if you're doing a refinance, if you want to get some of the cash back that you poured into doing an ADU, great. Get the regression report, give it to the appraiser, make sure they look at that data and agree to consider it in their appraisal report. What you want to avoid when talking to an appraiser, if you get in front of one, is you don't want to give them a value number. You don't, hey, I think my house is worth $780,000. You don't want to do that, because then they feel like they've got to be really careful not to show that you did something to induce, undue influence on them to put a certain value number on the appraisal. You never want to mention a value number. You can say, hey, based on this regression report, it looks like ADUs add around X percentage of value or add around 90,000 in value, but I want you to look at the data and come up with your own determination based on what you see here. If you have questions about it, call the appraiser to put this together. I paid for this, so it would be easier for you. And that's how I do it. Now, here's the other thing. A lot of people know this, but I'm going to lower my hand because it says my hand is raised, excuse me. A lot of people say that, okay, if it's attached to the property and there's interior access, that's the best way to do it. That's true. That's true. If you have an attached ADU and you can design it in such a way where there's interior access, and maybe you can close that access off when you don't have the appraiser coming out or when you don't need it. That's great, because it does two things. One, they can still add the ADU adjustment. They can go positive 50 grand for ADU, whatever they determine is reasonable. Maybe you don't need them to do the regression analysis. And positive adjustment for gross living area, square footage of X amount, right? So you get kind of a double positive favor and value. Well, obviously that doesn't work for detached homes, right? Another question people have asked me is, does it matter if it's permitted or unpermitted? No, it doesn't. For the purposes of a loan, and this is really important, maybe it's a little more important for the sale. Some people want to know this. Some localities might ding you on it a little bit, make you get retro permits. But for the purposes of a loan, an appraiser is going to look at this and they're going to go, look, in most cases, if a buyer wants a home with an ADU, it doesn't matter that much to them whether or not it's permitted. It's a little difference because they're so scarce and so many people want them. So what they're going to look at is they're going to go, is it done in a workman-like manner? Does it look like a good contractor built this thing, or does it look like a hobnob, like a shack somebody just assembled, out of scrap metal? Obviously that's not the case, but are there health and safety code violations? Are there obvious things that are making this problematic in numerous ways, or was it done well? And is this similar to homes that do have permitted ADUs? Because you might have gotten a general contractor's license that built a beautiful, up to code, safe ADU and just didn't permit it. That happens. I bought a house like that. It's unfortunate, but it's still a great ADU. So that's not a huge consideration when you're getting a loan, not at all. One thing I'd like to talk about, and then we get to other questions in the chat box that are coming up, is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and FHA and VA all have guidelines that implicitly prohibit financing on homes, single-family homes that have more than one ADU. Now that's important because in California, you can build two on a single-family home. You can build a detached and a junior attached, JDU and an ADU, right? You can build two. So I have a home and I'm building two on mine, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a cash out refi after I finish one, and then I'm going to finish the other, because Fannie Mae explicitly says it's not allowed. Now, I was helping somebody the other day who contacted me from the group and they wanted help on this. And they had a fourplex. Here's the other thing. If you've got a multi-unit home, 2 to 4 units, and you add an ADU, you cannot get financing from Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or FHA. This is really important to know. So if you say, hey, I want to do cash out, you might want to consider your financing before you get that ADU built and make your property ineligible. Now, the cases where this is not true is when you get a property inspection waiver, when your lender says, hey, you don't need an appraisal. Sometimes Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac issue those. But, and I've done homes with multiple ADUs that got a property inspection waiver and I was able to do it. So that's just really important to keep in mind. This person said, well, another lender told me I can go do it with my fourplex. I can go build the ADU and then do cash out. And I said, great, send your lender these guidelines. And I screenshot the guidelines that say 2 to 4 unit homes with an ADU are ineligible for sale or delivery to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Send these out. Just things to keep in mind, right? You don't want to get in a position where you're not going to be able to get that. The other thing to keep in mind is there are very, very, very few lenders in the country who will give you a home equity line of credit on a multi-unit home that is an investment property or just an investment property on its own. I see a lot of questions in the group. How can I get HELOC on my investment property? There's like one bank, it's Quorum, and they can be brokered too, or you can go to them directly as a retail agent. And I've talked to people, and I don't even use Quorum because they have terrible service. It takes forever and ever and ever. I mean, 90, 120 days, 180 days, and they'll just deny your loan. It's really difficult to find HELOC products on investment properties. There's just such a high risk factor there. So keep that in mind. You know, I see a lot of questions about this. I just want to give people some guidance. Okay, now let me move on to questions. Got a lot of chats. Try and use the Q&A if you guys can. Let me just scroll through these real quick. I don't have any recommendations for Airbnb property management in the East Bay. Attached ADUs are essentially a duplex. No, they're not. I'll tell you why in a second. Permitted equals C of O. If not, is it then uninhabitable space? I don't understand the question. Maybe less acronyms, please. Curious to know what the data for the regression analysis obtained when there are no comps. Yeah, no. Okay, so we got this guy Patrick, and he's probably a math major, a math wizard here, which is awesome. Certificate of occupancy. Thank you. Okay, let me get back to a second. He said, "Can I do my own regression analysis if there are no comps?" Well, here's the beautiful thing: if you get a list of all the homes that have sold, I got a list of all the homes in Concord with an ADU. You can go back and find out when those sold, and when they sold, did they have the ADU? But what you can go, the beauty of a regression analysis is, you don't have to look for comps. You just have to look back. However long you have to look back and go, how long do I have to look back before I find a whole bunch of sales? Over a period of time, even if it's one every 6 months, 8 years. My guy went back 8 years to get 30 sales that had ADUs. That's why the regression analysis is important. When appraisers are looking for comps to put on the value grid, which is not what a regression report is doing, they're looking at recent sales, right? When you're putting together a regression analysis, you're going back years and you're finding the homes that did sell with an ADU. Maybe it was 1 a year, maybe it was 2 a year, maybe it was 10 a year, but you got to go back and back and back until you get enough data. So a multiple point regression analysis does this. It takes a dependent variable and it bases that based off of several independent variables. So one of your independent variables is homes that have sold with ADUs. Another one is homes that have sold without ADUs. Another one is similar square footage and bed bath homes. All these go into helping you figure out how to value your home with an ADU. So you go way back in time over a long period of time and you try and collect data. You're just widening your camera lens, your binoculars, so to speak. And you're going, okay, in the last 6 months, I only see one with an ADU. In the last 12 months, I see 2. In the last 8 years, I see 20. Great. You don't need 100. You just need enough that you compile enough data and go, okay, on average, this is how much more people are spending to buy a home with an ADU. And this is how much the demand is going up every year. For people, 8% per year, people are starting to wake up and realize, wow, I should get the home with an ADU because Robert's got one and doesn't have a mortgage payment. I tell everybody this, but don't for years, right? Obviously, you guys, a lot of you are from the How to ADU page. So, you know the value of having an ADU. Okay, let me jump onto another question here. Sorry, there's a lot. Let me scroll through this. So the key takeaways: to find a lender that has approved appraisers that recognize independent regression analysis. Joshua, that is absolutely correct, and I am one of them. And again, not a self promo, but if you call a lot of lenders, they won't know what the heck you're talking about. If that's the case, you can reach out to me. Permitted equals certificate of occupancy. If not, isn't it uninhabitable space? I think that's more of a question in regards to health and safety and insurance. Is it insurable to your insurance? As far as a loan is concerned, again, they're not going to look at whether or not it was permitted. They don't care. They want to know if it's done in a workmanlike manner, if it's similar to other homes they use in the area. This is true for a lot of unpermitted work. So I'm going to jump over to the Q&A real quick. You guys, please put your questions in the Q&A, not in the chat, because the webinar thing has these set up in different areas. Answer this question, but I have joined late. How would you reach out for a regression report in LA County? You got to find an appraiser that can do it. Again, I'm happy to help with these. If you guys can't find people that can do it, you can message me or you can email me. I'll put my email in the chat. What I'd like to do is set up individual calls with each person that needs it and assess what you need and then point you in the right direction. If I can help you, I'm happy to. If I can't, again, this is not a self promo. I'll tell you where to go, who to call, etc. I'm just going to help you guys. Regression report works, appraisers work throughout the state. David, is your question, are regression reports acceptable to appraisers throughout the state? They should be throughout the entire country because they all follow similar appraisal guidelines. Fabian says, is it better to request a separate address for the ADU? So that's a question that Ryan O'Connell addressed in SB 9 versus ADU. I'm more on the line of ADU. A separate address, I don't think matters as far as valuation is concerned. You would have a separate address. It was considered a duplex though. So I'm going to quickly answer that. If an ADU is unpermitted, then isn't habitable space having a C of O then it's considered habitable. Your statement was that if it doesn't matter whether it's permitted, looking for clarification. Well, David, I'm talking about for the loan. So don't get that confused with like county or local rules. I'm talking about for a loan purpose. If we go into value a property and it's got an unpermitted ADU on it, that doesn't deny you from being able to get a loan, and that doesn't deny you from being able to get a good appraisal on it. They should be able to appraise it as if it was a property with an ADU like the other one that sold, even if it had a permit or not. I'm gonna mark that as answered. Again, guys, please try and use the Q&A. It's easier. Let me go back to the chat here. Can someone suggest a licensed contractor? I need to add a new water meter. That's not what we're doing here, but on the ADU page, they probably can. Can you discuss more about SB9 and ADU? Yeah, let's talk about this. So Ryan O'Connell had a really good video lately. Go to his YouTube page. He's the admin, the one who created How to ADU. But he has a video, which I just watched last night, SB9 versus ADU. So a couple of things to keep in mind. One is people said, why can't I use the income approach? There's different types of appraisals. So we're talking about a Fannie Mae 1004 form is the typical appraisal form that you would use, or that a lender would use to get your home appraised, right? Excuse me, and that's for a single family home, with or without an ADU. If you had a duplex, triplex, fourplex, attached, detached, any combination, 2 to 4 units on one APN, right? That's really important. Assessor's parcel number. Then you would use a form. I think it's a 1057. I'm not sure, but it's an income approach. They would also want to look at comps, but they want to look at the income. So they're going to have a 1007 on there, which is a comparable rent survey form. And so, okay, why can't we use a comparable rent survey form to show the value of an ADU? If I can rent my ADU out for $3,300 on short-term rental, why can't we show that? Or $2,000 on long-term rental, why can't we show that and how much value that adds? Because, if you were to look at like a debt service coverage ratio, my ADU debt service is like $400,000 or $500,000. So why can't we show the extreme value presented right there? And that should be the case. But Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, they haven't caught up. These agency guidelines and housing guidelines have not caught up to modern times and how people are using these ADUs. So right now, they're not ever going to use an income form to appraise a single family home with an ADU. They just won't do it. Fannie Mae won't allow it. They don't want to see income on it. They want to see comparable sales approach. And within that, they want to see a value grid and a specific adjustment. You can't find comps, appraiser can't find comps, specific adjustment. Thanks, David, for posting that link for the how-to ADU videos, for the value of that ADU. That's really, really, really important. For a multi-unit, you would have that. So is it better to do it as a duplex, or is it better to do it as an ADU? Watch Ryan's video. There's a lot that goes into that, a lot of considerations. I think he prefers it as an ADU. I would say from a financing standpoint, if it were me, I would do them as ADUs, right? From a financing standpoint, though, duplex might get you better valuation. It just might, right? Because it's another living unit. They can count the gross living area. It might be easier to appraise for an appraiser. You still have to have a good one, though, because some areas don't have a high density of multifamily housing, 2 to 4 unit residential multifamily housing. Definitely in the case when you've got a 2 to 4 unit house already, if you're going to add an ADU, it might be better to use SB9 and just make it a triplex or a fourplex, because again, you become completely ineligible for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA financing if you have an ADU on a multi-unit 2 to 4 unit residential home. It's crazy. It's a stupid rule. It only makes your property more valuable and less risky, right? Because you have more income you can generate on it. I think it's crazy. I'm going to find a way to lobby. There's a couple of ways I know can lobby the agencies, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, to change their guidelines on this, but it's a little bit outrageous. I'm going to open up the Q&A again because I see some more questions coming in. Did you say separate address is classified as duplex? So separate address, you can apply for a separate address with USPS to recognize a separate address. That doesn't mean much. If you permit it as a separate unit versus an ADU, first of all, you'd have it separately metered, right? Whereas with an ADU, you don't need that. So separate address is not really relevant for what we're discussing. So I'm going to answer that because I'm done here. I've been approved for an attached ADU in the process of building it. Can I use SB9 to call previously approved ADU as a second unit and then build another ADU? Gosh, that's a good question. Maybe something that Ryan would know the answer to, actually. You can build a detached ADU, though. You can build, in California, you can build an attached ADU and a detached ADU. That's allowed. And that law, there's actually an amendment to a law that was passed in 2018. I don't remember the SB, AB something, I don't know, 69, I don't know. Ryan knows. Ryan knows the answer to this. It's probably on his YouTube page. But it sunsets in 2025. It'll probably get extended. But right now in California, you can build a JDU, junior ADU attached, and a detached. And if it's less than 800 square feet, there's no impact fees. And there's I think it's called ministerial approval. Basically, nobody can object to it, and it's an over-the-counter permit, so it doesn't go before like a design review board. You can paint it green and have unicorns coming off the roof. So I'm going to say that's answered. Can you go over the lack of financing for SFR? Sure. So we're going to go over this again. So David asked financing for ADUs. So, okay. So as a lender, I've got access to something called Ask Polly. It's kind of like, they say it's AI. It's not really AI. Just everybody likes to call their own technology AI, even apps that sell pizza, which is really stupid. Let me pull this up. ADU. Oh, you know what else is interesting is that you can't use rental income from an ADU to qualify for a home loan unless it's a very specific loan program called a Home Ready loan, and you have a history of collecting that rental income that you've claimed on your taxes. The catch, though, is that Home Ready loans by Fannie Mae have income limits, which are not very high, 80% of the area median income. So in most cases, once you add in the rental income from the ADU to qualify, you're above the income limit. You're no longer in that program. It doesn't work. Okay, Fannie Mae requirements for ADUs. Only one ADU is permitted on the parcel of the primary 1-unit dwelling. ADUs are not permitted with a 2 to 4 unit dwelling. The ADU must be subordinate in size to the primary dwelling, have the following features, and it just talks about what an ADU is, right? So, I mean, here's the situation, right? So I had a client out in Oakland. He bought a house. I helped him buy a house, and it was a duplex and it had an ADU. Well, the ADU, I don't think it wasn't permitted, right? And it was like a kitchenette, but it was functional, right? But nobody was living in it. And I said, well, decommission it. Because, if you look at okay, means of ingress, egress, check. These are the ADU requirements. Sleeping area, check. Kitchen, check. Bathing area, check. Bathroom facilities, check. I was like, take one of them out. If you don't have a stove, you don't have a fridge, do you have a kitchen? I don't know. Probably not, right? There's no bed and you have a desk in there. Is there a sleeping area? No, it's not. It's not a sleeping area. You can leave a toilet, but it's like if you declassify it, and you can do this in some situations. And so, let's say that you've built an ADU or you have a property that might be listed as ineligible. There are certain ways around it. But in most cases, if you put an ADU on a home that's already a 2 to 4 unit home, you are not going to be able to get financing on it. And if you put more than one ADU on a single family home, you're not going to be able to. And let me say this: you'll be able to get financing, but the rate won't be great. It won't be conventional financing. It won't be prime financing. It'll be non-agency financing, which means it's not a Fannie Mae, it's not a Freddie Mac, it's not an FHA, it's not a VA, it's not a USDA loan. None of those, right? So just be careful with that. You want to make sure that when you're going through this method of buying, rehabilitating, renting, refinancing, the BRRRR method, right? You're not going to get to the end of the BRRRR and go, I can't refinance, right? That would suck. So, okay. Does anybody else have any questions? I see I got another one here. All the municipalities in my region require a second address. Are you saying that you can't get financing if there's a second address? No, I did not say that at all. I said it's not relevant to what we're talking about. Second address or not, doesn't matter. You mentioned owning property in Contra Costa County. Do you know whether you can Airbnb ADUs on Cocoa County? I've heard mixed answers on this. I believe you can, but check on their website or give them a call. There's a lot of ADUs on Airbnb in Contra Costa County. But check that out. I'm not certain. I think that you can. Let me see. I think we've got another question in the chat box. Please put them in the Q&A because it's hard to flip back and forth. Okay, so David linked the, you're right, 750 is the cutoff for no impact fees. Thanks, David. We're doing an ADU and I've gotten a second address. Burbank charged just $89. Yeah, I don't think the address thing is that. It's as far as ADU valuation, which is what this webinar is kind of going over, and financing eligibility, some of the stuff we've tangentially discussed. Having a second address is not important. If we were to go do a loan on a property, if appraisers to look at it, and some people have asked me this, okay, I have an ADU, can they classify it as a duplex? No, because an appraiser is going to know. He can look up public records. He can look up and see how was this built, how was it permitted, right? If the home was built as a single family residence and you didn't use SB9 and you did permit it as an ADU, he's going to see that and he or she is going to appraise it as a single family home with an ADU. If you order an appraisal and the appraiser gets out there and goes, hey, this is a multi-unit, this is classified as a duplex, this was permitted and built as a duplex, they'll go back to the lender and say, you need to reorder this on a different form. It's a different price and everything. Duplex, triplex, fourplex appraisals are different than single family appraisals. It's a different paper format entirely, different things to be filled out. I tried to do that when I bought my house years ago. I tried to get the appraiser to look at it as a duplex, and he wouldn't do it. He goes, no, I can just pull up City of Concord. It shows it's built in 1986, permitted, ADU. This house is built, single family. This is not zoned for. It's not built as, Zoning changes over time. So people go, okay, my house is zoned for multifamily, but it doesn't matter. You can have non-conforming to your zoning, and that's common because zoning changes with new general plans that get published by the city and the county. When building a detached ADU garage conversion in LA County on a duplex property, after using the regression report to help value the house, would our property taxes increase? I would love for the house to be valued more so I can take money out, but don't want to pay more in taxes. Okay, this is a great question. An anonymous person has asked, just in case the IRS is listening in on the chat. No, I'm just kidding. So what they're asking, so no, when you do a loan and you get it appraised, this is not information that gets shared with the county to reassess your property taxes. When you permit and build any improvement on your house, whether it's HVAC, solar, brand new windows, remodeled bathroom, the county is going to see that, send you a form, have you fill it out, describe what you did, and then reassess your taxes because they go, you've added value to your house and we want to tax you more for it. And you can argue with them. You can say, we don't think, and they have on-staff appraisers. This is assessed value. We're talking about ADU valuation for the purposes primarily of a loan or selling your property. When you're fighting the county, you can fight them for any number of things. They're going to come back and assess me for adding a junior ADU on my house in Concord. And you know what I'm going to fight them on? It was a very low cost conversion because that thing, when I bought it, had a dugout basement with 7-foot ceilings, headers, tie downs, 5-foot foundations, windows downstairs, electrical downstairs, plumbing downstairs. The value was already there. And that's why I bought it. And that's why I spent $40,000 or $50,000 more than other homes without that, because it already had like a started ADU. It already had a pre-ADU. So if they try to go, you added a junior ADU, you added 110,000. They go, no, I added like 30,000 in value, according to you guys, because this was here. I paid for this house and paid extra money for it because it had all this stuff here. And I'm going to show them that because, the county assessors, appraisers, they don't do a whole lot. They might look at a picture of your house on Google Maps. They might drive by it, but they're not going in like an appraiser is for a loan. They're not measuring with a laser every corner of your property, looking at the square footage, the condition, the lots, they know the lot size, right? All the improvements. They're going, you paid $540 for it. We're going to, say your assessed value is $540. You added an ADU. We think that adds this. Argue with them. You can fight that for up to, I think, 2 years after they do it. You can fill out a form. You can fight it. You can have them reconsider it. You can get on the phone with the appraisers at the county. You can fight your property taxes. Don't pay more taxes than you need. The regression report, though, would help you on the value of your house. But let's see. You really want the regression report so you can get a good appraisal, so you can get a good loan. Do I need to split a lot via SB9 in order to have 4 units on a single family lot? Okay, so as far as SB9s, from what I'm concerned, from what I understand, is that it allows you to do things that are not zoned, right? The state is kind of overriding localities saying you can build additional units as multi-unit homes, not ADUs, using this law. Ryan talks about this. Check out Ryan's page, his YouTube page. Repost from chat box. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Will Fannie Freddie consider an unpermitted garage conversion as an ADU such that if a new detached ADU is built on the property, it will become a blocker to cash out? Oh, this is a great question. Okay, so David asked this question. So here's the deal. Yes, but you've got to look at the requirements for an ADU. The ADU must be in subordinate size to the primary dwelling. So let's say you've got this garage conversion, David, right? Is it smaller, obviously, than the primary dwelling? Does it have separate features from the primary dwelling? Means of ingress, egress, entrance and exit, kitchen, sleeping area, bathing area, and bathroom facility. So let's say you've done this like garage conversion into an ADU. You've got interior access when you want it for the appraiser. That's all fine and good. And then you want to build a detached ADU, but you don't want to not be able to get Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac financing. Well, what I would do is I would go into that attached ADU that was converted from a garage, and I would pull out the stove and the fridge, and the bed, and put in a desk. And then when they go in there, they go, hey, this doesn't have all the 5 things needed to be considered by Fannie Mae as an ADU. So guess what? There's only 1 ADU on this property, not 2, and I'm counting that in the gross living area. This is kind of what you want. This is why having somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes to your loan is really, really important. I look at these scenarios and I help people kind of structure around this. Because, if you just wait till the appraiser goes out there, it's too late. It's too late. If the lender sees that, the appraiser sees that, and you haven't prepped ahead of time, it's too late. Okay, let's say I've answered that. Anthony put in the question box. Anthony, thank you, Anthony. Okay. I'm going to check the chats real quick. If we have any other questions, please type them in now. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up soon. This will be recorded. This will be posted. I hope this was really helpful, though. So key takeaways: where there's a lack of data, you need a regression report. In order to get a regression report, you need a really smart or really good appraiser that knows how to do that and is willing to do it. Second, you need a lender who can work with the appraiser and make sure that they get an appraiser out there that will accept and consider the regression report. That is acceptable, but some companies won't allow that. Some companies are too strict. Some AMCs won't allow it. Some appraisers will throw their hands up and say, no, I won't look at what you give me. So just be careful with that, okay? Again, not doing self-promo, but if people need help, they're getting stuck or they're planning, I'm happy to do one-on-one calls. You'll just need to message me or email me. I'll throw my email down here in the chat box so you can send me questions. Again, you know, I am happy to give advice whether or not it benefits me with like a sale or something like that. If I can just help point you in the right direction or give you some advice to prep. If I can't help you, that's great. I'm just going to go robertringteam@gmail.com. And let's see. I don't know why it's not letting me put it in there, but my email is my first and last name, Robert Ring, and then the word team, like a baseball team, @gmail.com. My phone number is 925-322-1597. I told the guys that had ADU this would not be a self-promo video, so I don't want to go too far into that. I'm not going to talk about rates, products, things like that. I work for a company called Cross Country Mortgage. Somebody asked for compliance purposes, in case anybody from Cross Country sees this, my NMLS number is 1034016, and we are an equal opportunity lender. I really appreciate everybody who's jumped on today. You can follow me on my page. I write for Bigger Pockets. I'm going to do an article about the bond market crashing this week and how much I dislike Jerome Powell and his leadership. In the past, I've written about loan level price adjustments and a couple of other random topics on biggerpockets.com. Follow my posts on how to ADU if you want to learn more about like my projects that I'm doing. I've currently got 3 homes with ADUs on them. One that I'm developing 2 ADUs on at the same time. So anyways, thank you to everybody that's joined in today. I really appreciate it. This thing took off. I offered to do like a live video and all of a sudden I had like 100 people registered for this thing. So I'm really grateful to all the people that jumped on and listened. And hopefully you found some really valuable information today. But if you're getting answers that don't sound right, just move on. Find somebody that knows what they're talking about. That's the most important thing. So anyways, thanks again, guys. Have a great weekend. Have a great day. Hey, Jana, thanks for tuning in. Jana's a great gal, and they've got a really awesome ADU. All right, take care. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, there's more Q&A. Hold on, let me see. Where will the video be posted? I'll post it on my page. I'll post it on how to ADU. I know you don't want to do self-promo, but what do you do for a living? I'm a mortgage loan officer. I do home loans. I also develop properties and I flip properties. And I write, but I don't get paid to write, unfortunately. Thanks for asking the question. I appreciate it. Could you share your page? Sure. Yeah. So just go to Facebook and type in Robert Wilson Ring, and you can just click add friend or follow, and then you can see like my post updates. I have another page that talks more about like financing around multi-units around ADUs. I don't want to advertise that on here though, because I don't want to take away from the people that the good people over at How to ADU. They've been gracious to let me invite people on this page. Kim said, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Let's see, I've got some, all the questions are all pouring in now. So I'm just gonna open this up. Great Zoom. Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. All right. Let's see, more Q&A. Your page link, please. Okay, let me see if I can type the answer to this. Okay. Okay, let me find my page link. Give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. Let's see, how do I share my page? Copy link. Okay, profile link copied. There we go. And there we go. Great Zoom on ADUs. Thank you, Marek. Okay. Well, hey, thanks again to everybody tuned in. I'll hang out for a couple of minutes. If anybody just wants to stay and ask more random questions, I'm happy to chat about anything. Thank you, David, for posting that. That's the link to my page. I think within that, you can see other groups, and I'm a part of another group that talks about more stuff around ADU development and financing. But again, I don't want to take that away from How to ADUs, because they've got the hold on that. And Ryan has got some great content. A lot of the questions that were asked today can probably be answered on Ryan's page, Ryan O'Connell, on his YouTube page. He's got an awesome YouTube page. You guys should go like and subscribe to that. But he talks about a lot about the SB9 stuff. I know some people have some questions about addresses. It's not important for financing. Don't let anybody tell you that it is. Neither is separate metering. A lot of that stuff's not important. It's random, weird stuff that doesn't make sense. That's important for financing, like 2 ADUs or one on a single family home versus a duplex, that type of stuff. Any other questions? I'll hang out for another minute here. Q&A. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Thank you, Yan. All right, guys. Well, maybe we'll do this again. Thanks for tuning in. Email. Sure. Yeah. Let me just type my email in here so people can see. I tried to do this a second ago. It wouldn't let me. It's robertringteam@gmail.com, like a baseball team. There we go. And panelists. Did that go out to everybody? Robert Ring. Let me see if I can change this. Everyone. Here we go. I'll send you a company email too. Robert.ring@myccmortgage. Okay, guys. I'm going to sign off now if no more questions. Thanks again, and we'll see you on Facebook.